Here we are again, guys. Episode 13, Triumph 650 Rebuild Series, Lowbrow Customs. Here's the motor, she's all buttoned up. Today what we're gonna do is we're gonna use an alternate motor because this is obviously not in the frame. I have another motor right over here in a bike that's basically the same motor. It'll be all the same procedures. And we're going to install the push rods, rocker boxes, torque the cylinder head bolts, adjust the valves, and we'll also show you how to adjust the primary chain, true the pressure plate, and adjust the push rod. And that'll be pretty much everything you need to know to get her running. Let's move on over to the other motor here. All right, here's our alternate motor that we can go ahead and get the rest of the jobs done on because the other one's not going in the chassis anytime soon because it's not ready yet. Basically, this is a later year model. We got the breather out here, but all the things we're doing here will be exactly the same. Okay, you see the rocker boxes are off, motor's installed in the frame. I've got the outer head bolts and the inner head bolt installed. We'll go ahead and start with the front rocker box. And the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna install the push rods. What I like to do on the push rods is I like to put a nice big glob of grease in the end so when I stick it down in the hole I can feel if it's on the tappet or not. So I got some grease right here. We'll just put some grease in those sockets where they engage. And then you're just going to insert them into the pushrod tube. This pushrod tube actually has holes. And you can, with that grease on there, you can feel when it's on the tappet. You can kind of pull up and down on the tappet and it'll have a little bit of, you can just tell. Okay. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to rotate the engine so that both of the push rods are at their lowest point. So spark plugs out, transmission in neutral. We'll just use the Kickstarter. See that push rod coming up? Now it's coming down. We'll roll it through one time so you can see how they go up and down. Now that one's coming up. Now it's coming down. That should be where the push rods are both at their lowest point. So again, double checking that we're on the lifters because you can't really see down in there. Okay, now we're going to use a new gasket on here. And I prefer these gaskets that have metal in the middle of them rather than just a thin paper gasket. And there's some guide holes on the gasket for the push rods that kind of help guide those too. So we're going to feed those through there. Just get that baby on there like that. Boom. Okay, the other thing I like to put I'll put a little dab of grease on the top now. And I also like to just put a little dab of grease on the tips of the valves where the rocker arms contact them so they're not dry on startup. Okay. Now we've got our pre-assembled rocker box. Obviously, the rocker feed needs to be facing this side of the engine for the line that gets connected to the oil tank. So you're just going to kind of stick this in the middle where you've got more room. Then you're going to lift it up over the push rods and set it down on there. Boom. Now, we're going to go ahead and put the head bolts in first. And the reason being is sometimes you got to finagle it a little. Here's our new head bolts. On the one side, see how it kind of wants to hit the frame? So we'll let the washer go down, and by just lifting the rocker box up ever so slightly, the head bolt will drop down in there. This side's really not a problem. And those should thread very smoothly because we checked all our threads once again. I don't know how many times I can stress that you want to make sure all your threads are good, because if your threads on the top of your cylinder were bad right about now, geez, now we got to take the cylinder head off and then figure out why. Okay? And then we have 2 long bolts that go into the cylinder head. So again, look at that, nice and smooth, going right in, just how we like it. Look at that, yeah. Bring those down by hand. And then we also have the 3 studs on the bottom, and those will get a nut and a washer. The washers that come off of these engines in this location are very, very thin, and I don't know where to get any without special ordering them. So what I use are these metric washers. They are, let's see here, 6mm metric washers work well there. They're a little thicker than the stock ones, but as long as you've got some thread showing, once you have the nut on, they'll be fine. Okay, so we've got all our fasteners that belong to the rocker box in there. We'll just go ahead and use this wrench. Incidentally, these are Whitworth, the head bolts. And we're just going to go ahead and snug those down with the wrench. Snug them down. And then we'll go ahead and snug down the long screws. One on each side. And then we're going to snug down the 3 in the bottom. Now, the one thing I didn't mention that I will now is you want to be sure that the top of the push rods, the little socket, is engaged with the rockers. And what we can do before we put the rear one on and torque everything up is we can just rotate the engine, and it won't hurt anything, and we'll just make sure they go up and down, that they're engaged. Because if they're not, then you've got a problem. So we're just gonna, there's that one going down. So we know darn well that one's engaged. Now it came back up and that one's going down. There we go. We know darn well that the push rods are in fact, and what those are riding on, obviously, is that ball inside there, like so. It is possible to get them in there, kind of cattywampus and cockeyed. No good. No bueno. Okay, so now that we've got the front one on, and let's snug her down just a tad more because we are going to turn the motor over again to put the rear push rods down. And basically what's happening is you're opening the valve. But when we go to torque it, if the valve's open, once you torque them, it'll be fine. Little grease in our sockets. I can feel that one's engaged. And that one is too. Now see where the push rods are? Oh boy, that one's down and that one's up. We can't put our rocker box on like that. We'd be forcing that valve open as we tighten it. So since we've already snugged this up, it's okay to rotate the engine now to bring those two down. See, that one's coming down. That one's going up, coming down. There we go. And that's the lowest those are going to go. So, once again, new gasket. Sometimes you got to force the end of the push rod over the hole in the gasket like I just did, but once it gets over it, the diameter's smaller, so it's okay. And once again, a little bit of grease on there, won't hurt anything. And a little dab of grease on the valve tips, stems, top of the, a little bit more there. Oh, we got a little bit there. We go. Look at that. Oh, something's in the grease. Okay. Now we're ready to put our rear rocker box on. And look at that. That rocker's way down. You want to push it up so that when it goes on, see if these are, you want this to go over that tip, and if this was down, it might run into it. So just pay attention when you're doing that portion of this job. You can tell if it's not right. It won't go on. Kind of sneak her on in there like so. Tilt it back again like so. And there we go. So again, head bolts first. And I've got some extra nuts on these for the top motor mounts. It's always a good idea to have top motor mounts on these engines. Factory put them on there for a reason. I see some choppers running around town where they cut this piece and this piece off because they think it looks better, but then you have no top motor mount. Sometimes on a custom bike, at least have one set, front or rear. Don't put them on there with no motor mounts. And see how that doesn't want to go in there? So we'll put the washer on first now. See how that baby's running smack dab into the frame? That's why we don't want to put anything else in or tighten anything up. You're going to just oh boy. That's a no bueno. She's a real close to the frame. There it goes. Hey, yeah, so we scratched the paint. Hey, you know what? This is not powder coated. This is a low budget project here. Can't see it, it'll be under the tank. It'll be all right. So again, these should thread nice and smooth, no forcing of head bolts. And it's basically pretty hard to look through that hole to see if that darn thing's on the push rod. So once again, after we get all the bolts in, we'll snug them down, we'll rotate the engine to make sure everything's engaged correctly. Because if for some odd reason you dropped your push rod down into the tube and didn't have it engaged with the lifter and it's kind of laying off to the side, as soon as you turn that motor over, you're probably going to bend the push rod. Okay, we'll go ahead and snug down the head bolts. And snug down these two. And our 3 nuts on the bottom again. Now these two with the dual carb head, kind of difficult to get to the outside ones, but we'll get her on there. And one other thing real quick here. These are new nuts. If you look at these nuts, you'll see that one side is very flat and the other side is not. You can, if we put them together, you can see the difference. This is the side that's going to go up against the washer. So I'll flip that over, see how it looks different. Same thing goes for the washer. Washer's got kind of a rounded side and a flat side. Common sense there dictates. So just pay attention when you're putting them back on that flatter side of the nut and the flatter side of the washer are both facing up towards the cylinder head. Like I said, those are kind of a bear to get on there, but we got it. Got to get it past that intake manifold and get her started. There we go. Same thing goes for tightening these. And I'm just snugging these up so I can verify pushrod tubes are good. And then the next thing we're going to do, we're going to torque the cylinder head bolts. Woo! Pretty exciting stuff. There's that one going down. Coming back, oh, there's the other one going down. I would be safe to say that everything's all engaged. Good job. Okay, let's get our torque wrench out and talk about torquing things again. And here is the sequence of which we'll be torquing the head bolts. You need to follow this little thing here. Number 1's in the middle, and then you move over to 2. So you just, even though I do this all the time, I still refer to this little diagram here because I can't remember everything. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's the order you need to torque the head bolts in. It does say the torque spec in here. It says torque cylinder head bolts evenly in the order shown to 18 foot-pounds for the 3/8 bolts and 15 foot-pounds for the 5/16 bolt. Well, these are 3/8. This is the 5/16, smaller one in the center. Okay, so once again, starting with the small one, number 1. I didn't have that snug down all the way, so there she is. Okay, Okay, so I got the center one torqued. Now we're going to move on looking at our chart. This is number 2 right here. And we're going to our final torque this time. And once again, this works way better with a deep well socket. There it is. And referring back to the diagram, number 3 is on the other side. Rear. Okay. And number 4 is in the front on this side. And number 5 is on the front on the other side. Okay. Now we're going to do the 4 outer ones and we'll be done. Oh, except we should have just stayed over there because 6 is on this one over here. 6, 7. Six, 7. Referring back to our diagram again, number 8 is in the rear. And the last and final one, number 9, is in the front. And there you have it. Okay, just to review, the torque sequence on the cylinder head is the little one in the middle is number 1, then it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now that we have all the cylinder head bolts torqued, we can go ahead and tighten the other fasteners on there, and guess what? I don't really care what the torque spec is. I'm going to tighten them by hand. Because I'll be darned if I want to pull the threads out of the cylinder head going by some silly torque spec. So, I'm going to do it by feel. The 4 inner ones and the ones on the bottom. Ooh, that one's pretty tight already. No need to overdo these. Just want to do them nice and even. And you'd think we had a hard time getting the torque wrench on those other ones. Boy, there's those. And once we finish tightening these last 3, then we can start adjusting our valves. Okay, we're all set to go ahead and do the valve adjustment. What you need to do when you're adjusting the valves on these is you're going to spark plugs out, you're going to use the Kickstarter in neutral, and you're going to rotate the engine. And you're going to be watching the rockers going up and down, and when one is all the way down, the other one will be all the way up. So this valve will be open, you're going to adjust the opposite side, the one that's all the way up, and then you'll rotate the motor again until the one you just adjusted is all the way down, and the other one will be all the way up. Basically what that's doing is it's at its loosest spot, not technically not the loosest spot, it's on the low part of the cam lobe, and that's where you adjust the clearance. Let me grab some feeler gauges here. And I just happen to have my feeler gauges off the thing because I use these all the time for the same job. We're going to do the intakes at 2 thousandths and the exhaust at 4 thousandths. Now, according to the book and another service bulletin, you can also set them at 4 and 6. I've been doing it this way for a long time, never had any problems. The biggest thing is generally after I adjust all 4, I'll rotate the motor over again and double check them before I put the caps on to make sure they're all good, because 2 thousandths is not very much, you know? The other thing worth mentioning, if you're doing this on a running motor, just doing a valve adjustment, you want to always do it when the engine's cold. You don't want to adjust your valves when the motor's hot. So we'll do the front ones first because they'll be easier for you guys to see for the video. Well, once again in neutral, and that one just went down and came up. Now it's coming up, it's up, it's up. Now that one will start going down. See, it's going down, it's going down, it's going down. Now it's starting to come back up. So we're going to go around one more time just because we can. Now, this one's going down. So when it's at its lowest point, we can adjust this side. Going down, just nice and slow till it stops moving. There it is. That's as far as this will go down. And so then what we need to do is we need to grab our wrenches. And what you've got is this nut locks the adjustment. Once you've got it set right, you use this to tighten it down. And this square portion does the adjustment. So basically that's going up and down in there. So you want to make sure that the larger nut, I can feel that it's got a little bit of play in there right now, but we want to loosen this, back this nut off just a little bit more so that we have room to adjust it. And see, now I can feel that there's some play in it. And once again, the exhaust we're going to do at 4 thousandths. So the way I like to do it, this needs to be in between the end of this and the tip of the valve. I like to leave the feeler gauge in there, and then what I'll do is I'll tighten the center one down and checking to see if the gauge is still moving. See, now it's too tight, I can't move that feeler gauge, so I'm going to back it off just a little bit till there we go. There's my 4 thousandths. Now you can also hear that noise it's making? You can grab it with your fingers and move it up and down. There's my 4 thousandths. So then what I'll do is I'll lock it down there. Now, when you're locking it down, we'll see what happens. We're going to turn this large nut to lock it, but if the center portion turns while you're doing this, you just lost your adjustment. So it's kind of important that you make sure that the nut turns nice and free on here. Okay, now I'm down to the bottom with the nut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this one to lock it, and I'm going to use this one to hold it so it doesn't move while I'm locking it. Because then, of course, we'd lose our adjustment. So I've got that on there. I'm just going to tighten that down. Sometimes you got to futz around with this. It's kind of a small space to work. So I can't get my wrench a good turn on it. So we'll go again with the closed end. Not the easiest thing to demonstrate. There we go. See how I keep moving my wrench to get another swing on it. And now she's locked down. And it almost feels like it may have turned while I was locking it. So we're gonna stick our feeler gauge in there and check it. And if it's not right, it's not the end of the world. You'll just loosen it up and try again. That's a tight 4, but it's still there. It's a tight 4, but that's okay. Now, we're done adjusting this one. We locked it down. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn the motor over. That one's coming up now. And when this one goes down, okay, she's going down, down. That's it right there. This one's down. That one's up. And just by somehow the way I put those in there, I've got some play, because you don't want to have them too tight when you're assembling the engine. So now we'll go ahead and we'll, once again, stick our feeler gauge in between the end of this. And if it's too loose, see that gauge moving? That's me pushing on the rocker arm and taking up the slack, and see how it's moving the gauge. So I can tell that one's too loose. It's more than 4 thousandths. So once again, I'm going to back off my nut. That one. And then I'm going to tighten down the center. And I'm going to check while I'm tightening. Still moving. That's too tight. See, the gauge is not moving now. And this is a very precise adjustment. And it does take, it's a bit of a feel thing. There she is, see it? Now my gauge is just moving in and out in between the tip of the valve and the bottom of this. So now we can go ahead and lock this one down. Once again, I'm just going to carefully turn that nut back down, watching the center to see that it doesn't turn while I'm tightening this, because if it does, that's going to lose the adjustment. And you don't have to crank these down hard. And there it is, see? Nice sliding fit. That's my 4 thousandths. Once again, you can kind of grab the end of this. There's your 4 thousandths, I can feel it. I've done this enough times that I know what it feels like. Okay, so those two are done. I don't see much reason to show you again what we just showed you, so I'm going to just go ahead and adjust these. This side's all the way down. We're going to adjust this one. Oh, see how that one's real open way far, so we're going to run the nut out. Those other two just happened to end up pretty close to where they needed to be by accident. That wasn't planned. Okay, before I put my caps on, I'm just going to roll it back through one more time and just give it a feel. I'm not going to stick my feeler gauge in because like I said, that one's coming up. That one's going down, down, down. There's my 4 thousandths. That one's coming up. That one's going down, down. There's my 4 thousandths. This one's going down. There's my 2 thousandths. That one's going down. And I'm pretty confident I have some clearance on all 4 valves. Once again, start it up and it's kind of noisy. Maybe one's loose. They'll get checked again before this is all said and done. So we can go ahead and put our caps on. We'll show you the nifty tool that we made for doing this job. I've got some new gaskets. For the rocker covers, I've got these loose. I'll tighten them up after we put the caps on and tighten them down. And once again, these caps don't need to be cranked hard, but the little keepers that we have on there will keep them tight. And this valve adjustment stuff is way easier to do with the gas tank off, and you could see if the carburetors were on here, it makes it difficult to do the intake ones. But it is possible to do that with the bike completely together. So if you have a running bike, and it's always a good idea to make sure your valve adjustments are correct. Okay, we've got all 4 caps, all 4 keepers. Valve cap tool. Woo! Look at her. It's a beautiful thing. That will fit into those grooves and not booger these up, because as you can see, the way that hex shape is on there, you can tell somebody's used a screwdriver. These are original caps on this motor. These haven't been replaced. So this tool will keep us from boogering this stuff up here. Just put it in the slot. And give it a turn. That should be good. Nice little tool, inexpensive tool. Just tight enough to seal is what we're looking for there. I don't think you can get it that tight with a screwdriver without boogering those up. And not like I'm cranking it down or anything. Just tightening it to compress that gasket. And we'll grab us a Phillips head and we'll tighten those 4 keepers. And see, that thing wants to turn when I tighten it, so if you just hold it, that's good. That one's good. Good. Okay. That's that. Now we've got all our valves adjusted. Now let's just roll the motor over a couple times to make sure everything feels good. Oh yeah, beautiful. All right, since the clutch cable's already installed on that one, we'll just go over this very quickly. This is your late style clutch. This is your clutch release. When the cable pulls up on this, there's a ball and ramp here. This center portion where you see that wear is what pushes on that long rod that goes through the main shaft. On the late cover, you can get your clutch cable on without taking this cover off. You've got this piece that threads in here, and then on the end of this cable, this will thread into here. This part's not in the best of shape, but at any rate, you're getting the idea. So this threads into there, then you'll shove this through this into here, and then you're just going to hook this like so, and that's what it looks like. And then see, when you pull the cable, it's moving that, which is pulling this out. So Pretty simple job to put your clutch cable on, not a big deal. Obviously it's easy now, I'm doing it because I'm doing it from this side. You'll be on this side, feeding it through, and just sometimes if you get like a bent coat hanger and kind of pull it to the slot and move it forward, and then when it drops in to there, you're good. So, didn't want you to think we weren't going to show you how to put your clutch cable on. Now here's an early cover where you'll unthread the piece and the part that the cable hooks on will be sticking up out of it like so, and the cable just slips in there. It's actually easier than that one, and it has this wire. So it does the same job, just a little different fashion. And one other thing worth noting is on a late bike, this is where you fill the transmission. On an earlier engine, doesn't have that round hole to fill the tranny. It will have the plug on the back of the crankcase. Early motor, you're gonna fill your tranny here. See, here's your little doohickey sticking up out of there for the cable. This is a mock-up motor I have in this frame, but that's where you're gonna fill. So I think the reason I'm showing you these two differences is if you put an early cover on your late motor, there won't be any place to fill up the transmission. You can go the other way around, so if you're mixing and matching parts, the cover's interchanged, that's not a problem, but you still have to have a way to fill your tranny. And that's what the change they did. They took that plug, if you look at this motor, there's no cap on the back end of the top of the motor to fill the tranny. So that's actually why that cover is in that parts bin over there. I bought a motor at a swap meet and they had the early cover on the late motor. So I had to switch it out. Oh, it was this motor as a matter of fact. So just be aware of that if you're looking for a cover. You need a new kicker cover. Yours is boogered up or broke or something's wrong with it. That's the difference. And also the clutch cables are different, early and late. And that's how you can tell, you know, just by looking at your kicker cover, you know which year cable to order for your clutch. All right, so what we're doing now is we're going to adjust these 3 springs and the pressure plate. And what we need to do is we need to adjust the cable up, preliminary adjustment. So we're gonna run this in. We've got the cable installed in the cover and we've got it threaded down pretty far where I showed you the adjuster that threads into there. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna run this adjuster in till it contacts the push rod. And you can see the plate just starting to lift. It's probably, can't see it, but you can see the plates, it's probably hard to see on the camera. But then we're gonna back it off about a half a turn and we're just gonna tighten that up preliminary. Okay, then we go to our hand lever. There's our pressure plate coming in and out. And when you hit the lever, it releases the pressure plate, which takes the pressure off of the plates, and that's what makes your clutch work. So, in order to check to see if this is running true, what you need to do is, I'm gonna climb up here on the lift, and hopefully you're gonna be able to see what I'm doing here. You're going to release the clutch and then you're gonna use the Kickstarter. And you're gonna rotate that pressure plate and you're gonna sight down the edge of it. And you want it to be running true. You can do it by hand or foot. But basically, you're sighting down this plane to see that when you're spinning around, it's going true. It's not wobbling like this. If it is wobbling, then you're going to readjust the screws. Now I can see that it's just out just a little bit. So once again, utilizing the awesome Lowbrow tool. We're going to turn this one in. You can see it's out. And this would be easier if that was on top instead of on the bottom in front of the brake. We're going to turn that one in. And make it even with the other ones as far as how much of that center is sticking out to start and see where we're at. It was actually pretty close to being true. It didn't look that wobbly, but like I said, you want this to run as true as it can. Okay, so now we're gonna release our clutch again and rotate our kicker. And I can see that it's proud right here, so I'm going to tighten that one a little bit more. So basically you just got to futz around with it until you get it to run true, because you don't want it wobbling. Let's see if I can do it from this side. Probably won't be able to see it. I'll just climb on up here again. This is the easiest way to do this. And I can see that it's proud. See it moving in right there, and then it's coming back out. It's in. So you kind of, okay, see how it just went in there? So now I'm going to loosen this one ever so slightly. So basically it's just a matter of loosening and tightening until you get it just right. I know it's a rigmarole, up and down, back and forth, round and round. That's looking pretty true right there. Okay, and then when you release it, it should turn the motor over nicely. And that should be a good adjustment right there to start. Always make sure you lube the heck out of your new cable. And then you also want to have some free play. There's my free play. Okay, to check your cable free play, you want to grab the cable in one hand, pull the clutch in, and when you release it, just pull on the cable a little. See that right there? That's our free play. That's could be maybe one turn more. You want to have that free play at the lever, and you want to have that little bit of free play down here. Now that we've got it all adjusted, we can go over this center adjustment again for the hell of it, because we didn't lock this down anyway since we messed with everything. So we're going to turn it out till it's not contacting that center rod. Right now I can feel it's just starting to contact it. Whoop. It's not touching it at all, and this is the rod that we put in the middle of the main shaft. So there it's not touching, it's just started to touch it. So you're going to give it a little pressure, and then you're going to back it off about a half a turn. And then you're going to lock down that nut. And that should be good to run the bike. I have noticed a couple of times after getting an engine ring seated that I'll be giving it a little more speed, a little more RPM, and notice the clutch may slip a little. Well, then it's just a matter of taking the cover back off and readjusting the spring tension. But right now I'm pretty confident that these are some good settings, but you make sure you have your free play at your lever and you have your free play here. And basically one of the reasons you see these the push rod worn out like the ones I showed you is if this is pushing against that push rod 100% of the time like this, it's going to wear the end of that, it's going to heat it up, and it's going to mushroom it. So you need that little bit of free play there before it contacts this piece, has a hardened end that touches that rod, and then you saw in the kicker cover itself, the clutch release has that other hardened place where it runs, and you just don't want those to be pushing against each other really hard. You need a little bit of free play. And one other thing worth mentioning, if you're adjusting your clutch and you start hearing a clicking noise coming out of that kicker cover, you've got it too tight. Everything's too tight. You need to de-adjust your cable, de-adjust it here, and de-adjust it here and go again. Because if it's clicking, what that's doing is it's the piece we showed you on the workbench, it's actually going past its useful range of motion, and that's there's 3 little ball bearings in there. It's a ball and ramp assembly, and it's going past its useful range of motion, and that clicking noise is those little balls in there. So if you hear a clicking noise coming out of there, too tight, do it over again. And the only thing I have left to do on this particular engine is install the primary gasket, put the primary cover on, and I've got to finish up. I have to do my ignition timing, but I've got all my other wiring done, and we should be ready to run this. I do like to put a thin bead of high temp silicone or case sealer on this surface here, then I stick the gasket on, then I put the cover on. And the reason I do it that way is, number one, I want it to seal good, and number two, if I do need to take my cover back off to do an adjustment, the gasket will stay on the crankcase. And a lot of times you can reuse it. If you put glue on both sides of if you put it on here and then on the cover, when you pull the cover off, more than likely the gasket will get torn in half and then you'll need a new gasket. We do have some really nice gaskets on the website, extra thick ones if your case isn't in perfect condition or your cover. We have some extra thick ones. I like using those all the time. We also have some standard ones. They work equally as well. And we have one more thing to do, and that's to adjust our tension. Well, we've got this plug right here, which we will remove. Okay, in order to adjust the tension on our primary chain, you need to remove this plug. Like so. And then utilizing this tool, you're going to stick it up in there and you're going to get it in the groove, and there it is, and you're going to turn it. Let's see, is this wrench going to work? Or do we need to, oh, that one will work. Now see what it's doing? It's turning this piece. And what that's doing is it's moving that shoe. It's bowing this up, and that will give us our tension here. So you're just going to turn this, and every time you turn it, see it's this piece has got a cut on it. And so it can't stop in the middle. That would not do anything. So you're going to turn that. Let's see where we're at. And that's actually pretty good right there. You don't want it too tight because that puts undue stress on the basket and the sprocket. So, and incidentally, if you don't have your cover off, you can take this plug out and reach down in there with your finger and pull up and down on that chain to see where your tension is. Once again, not too tight. I guess we could grab the book and see what it says about the tension on that as far as the specification. All right, according to the Glenn's manual, it says adjust the primary chain to allow 3/8 of an inch of play, 1/2 inch for 500 engine. So what you want is 3/8 of an inch there. So basically, if you were to take a ruler, like a machinist ruler, and put it up against the top edge of the chain and move it up, you should see 3/8 of an inch. I can tell by that, it's pretty good right there. I'm going to run with it there. Put our spark plugs back in, because I don't ever like to have spark plug holes hanging open. Lord knows what's going to fly in there when you're not looking. Again, a little dab of anti-seize on the threads of your spark plugs, but not on the electrode. That way, as it gets some carbon buildup on it, it's easier to remove. You've got an aluminum head and a steel spark plug. And look at that, he's got a plug wrench handy. Don't overdo it on your spark plugs, just enough to compress the washer that's on the bottom of the plug. Bada bing. There we go. And we also have one other part to put on here. Okay, we've got our rocker feed line. Probably should have put that on before I put that on, but that's okay, we can take that back off. New sealing washers on the rocker shafts. This is going to go behind that head bolt. I think, maybe not. Yep. Like so. There we go. And once again, flat side in on these washers too. Kind of like the other ones we showed you. And then we've got some new dome nuts for the rocker feed. And we're going to tighten those down. That takes care of that. Now, I mentioned earlier about the head stays, the top motor mounts. They will slide over this stud and go to this hole with a nut here, here, and here. I don't have any. I forgot to bring some home from the shop. If we have some in stock, I am going to put some top motor mounts on there, and they'll go on those long extra part of that stud sticking out of there. That pretty much covers the engine. Woo! Well, I guess that concludes our 650 Triumph engine rebuild series. I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. If you need any parts or advice, you're welcome to call the shop anytime. I'm available for questions. If you need advice on buying some parts, if you're working on your engine, you need some advice, that's what I do at Lowbrow. I help customers with motorcycle questions 5 days a week, 375 days a year. Oh, wait a minute, there's not even that many days in a year. Do apologize for the length of time it took us to complete this series. You know, we do a lot of other stuff besides provide you with this awesome video content at our shop. My awesome camera guy, Mikey, he does all our product photos, all our social media, a lot of our events. And it does take quite a bit of time to edit these awesome videos that you've been watching all these years. So once again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. And one other thing I gotta tell you, when we get this little honey here running in that chassis right there, we're gonna do a little short video of it firing up and ripping down the road. Woo! And the last and final one, number 9, is in the front. And there you have it. Lunch break, motherfuckers.